Hello, everybody. Thursday, June 13th on the Black and Gold Breakdown. As always, I appreciate you tuning in however you're doing it, whether it's on YouTube, on Twitter. If you are watching this on YouTube, please do all of that YouTube stuff and subscribe to the channel, like the video, all of that. Today, well, first of all, the Steelers wrapped up mandatory minicamp today. And so now we have, like a 6-week wait until they're back on the field for training camp in Latrobe. They report July 24th, and then they'll put on the pads and get to work July 25th. So a little bit over a month that we have to wait to see them back in action in some way, shape, or form, and get the 2024 season really underway. We're getting closer to preseason football as well. Less than 50 days until the Hall of Fame game. So this really begins the lull from mandatory minicamp to training camp. We got this, 5-6 week bridge that we got to cross. So we'll stick with it together. We'll get through it. Always do. And football will be back very, very soon. And again, 6 weeks to go until we're basically at the finish line. I understand people, usually I think we're like 89 days away from the week 1 opener in Atlanta. But once you get to the preseason, I mean, you're seeing games in action. So at least you're getting some semblance of football. I like the preseason just because, again, it is some semblance of live action. So we're getting closer day by day until the Hall of Fame game, until we are at training camp. Again, about 5.5 weeks until the Steelers report for training camp. But wrapping up mandatory mini camp today. And yesterday, I went around the locker room asking a handful of the newest Steelers. I believe I got 7 of them. Just asking, hey, it's your first, strength or stretch of time with Mike Tomlin. Just give me your, early impressions, what you think of him so far. And I really enjoyed the variety of answers that guys gave me. I will show you videos of 2 of them. If you want to see the other 5, go over to touchdownwire.usatoday.com and read up the rest of it. Again, 7 of the newest Steelers talking about Mike Tomlin. So Russell Wilson was the first guy that I asked. And so I will show you what his answer was about Mike Tomlin, his impressions of him thus far.
Well, Mike's been amazing, man. Coach Tomlin's a special coach, Hall of Fame coach. I'm grateful, man. We got some amazing players right here. The culture's amazing, and the work ethic's great too. So I'm just grateful to be here.
And Russell Wilson has been really good with us in the media since he's shown up. I mean, he's, even if he's not in, any sort of scrum, if he's sitting at his locker, anytime anybody comes over, he's like, hey, got a minute? He's never said no. He's just been a really good upfront guy. And he's talked really good about Mike Tomlin since he's shown up. You go back to his introductory press conference back in March. He highlighted Mike Tomlin as a guy, one of the bigger reasons why he came here, why he wanted to come here. And throughout this process, I mean, he's really hammered home the fact, this is Hall of Fame coach. He really puts over Mike Tomlin. And in terms of the way that he feels about him, man, it's very evident that he is excited to play for Mike Tomlin. And that's good to see from a guy who's looks like he's going to be the starting quarterback week 1. Dante Jackson was the second guy I asked. Obviously, different situation for him coming over than Russ. Russ signing as a free agent, and Dante Jackson being acquired via trade from Carolina. But this is what he told me about his first stretch of practices with Mike Tomlin?
Any other coaches?
Oh, it's been great, man. It's been great. You hear a lot about him, being on the outside looking in, and he's definitely as advertised. He loves football. He loves Steeler football, and it's just been a great experience, and I'm glad to have this opportunity.
So a lot of these new guys, I think Dante Jackson kind of hit it on the head. As advertised, we all hear the stories of Mike Tomlin. We know the Tomlinisms. We know all the Tomlin stories of the player-friendly coach, why guys love playing for him. And I understand that there's always going to be people, especially Steelers fans, that will push back on Mike Tomlin. And I've said it before on the show. I've done my fair share of that, because there are some things, especially over the past few years, where guys have been, how do I want to put this? The past few seasons where, this past season as a good example, where you lose 2 straight games to two-win teams. Now, as fans from the outside, we're looking at that and saying, okay, haven't had a playoff win in how long? Sitting at 7-4 in really good position, playing 2 bad teams at home, and you can't win at least one of those, but you lose both of them. And then they lose to Indianapolis. And I think once we got to the part being at Indianapolis, being at 7-7 after being 7-4, a lot of people were like, look, this could be it. And then the rumbles started. Hey, maybe he's going to go to Washington. Maybe he'll, talk to management and say, hey, if we're going to move on, if you're going to fire me, just trade me to Washington. Obviously, that didn't happen. Steelers won their last 3 games, got into the playoffs. And Mike Tomlin now has a new 3-year extension that'll keep him in Pittsburgh through at least the 2027 season. And while I've had my own qualms with a lot of the things that have gone down over the past decade or so, they had consecutive 8-8 seasons in 2013, 2014, get to the playoffs in 2015 and beat the Bengals. But you had to get pretty lucky to beat the Bengals. Because remember, the Bengals had the ball with less than 2 minutes left. Steelers don't get it back unless they fumble. And obviously they do, and the Steelers get the ball back. Chris Boswell kicks a field goal at the end to win the game. But they had to have a turnover. They had to have a bunch of penalties go their way at the end. Like, they could have very well lost to A.J. McCarron. And then they lose to Denver on a game that they very well could have won had Fitzgerald Toussaint not fumbled the ball and maybe gotten back to the AFC Championship game where they would have faced the Patriots. Now, obviously, Denver, remember, made it to the Super Bowl that year. Pretty sure that's the year that they beat Carolina in the Super Bowl. Yeah, because that was Super Bowl 50. So that 2015-16 season. So they came very close to beating the eventual Super Bowl champions. And if they face Carolina, now they would have had to have beat New England. And I don't, we know how that goes with the Steelers, where, hey, if the Steelers are playing the Patriots, probably going to lose, especially if it's in Foxborough. So we know how that goes. But regardless, there's a bunch of playoff games that slipped away, being that game against Denver. Obviously, the Tim Tebow game, but that now is, how long ago was that now? 12 years ago? Oh, my goodness. But even like the more recent ones, like the loss at home to Blake Bortles and the Jaguars, you got to win that game. You allowed 45 points to Blake Bortles and the Jaguars. Like, come on now. That was a situation where they were very much looking ahead to New England and got caught sleeping. And earlier that year, Ben had thrown 5 interceptions against the Jaguars in Pittsburgh as well. So they slept on the Jaguars too much, and they lose that game. I can't put too much of the recent playoff losses on Mike Tomlin because, again, a lot of these teams had no business being in the playoffs to begin with. Like last year's team, nobody expected them to beat Buffalo. Yeah, they lost by 2 touchdowns. I expected it to be worse. I think the Bills were kind of playing with their food at one point, which is why the Steelers were able to crawl back in and make it at least somewhat competitive. And then Buffalo realized, okay, they're getting kind of close. Let's put our foot down a little bit. Touchdown, Khalil Shakir. Okay, that's game. So even last year, yeah, they got to the playoffs and they lost another playoff game. Nobody expected them to get to the playoffs. They had a tire fire quarterback situation. All the backs are now gone. They had a horrible offensive coordinator. So no one expected them to get to the playoffs, especially when they had lost 3 straight. They were 7-7. There was a very small chance that they would do it, and they somehow pulled it off. Like, it takes a special coach to do that. So with all my qualms with Mike Tomlin, you can't deny the things that he's accomplished. I'm not going to, talk about the whole never had a losing record thing because that gets beat to death by outside media. Even Mike Tomlin himself, doesn't ever really acknowledge that because I think that he also knows that doesn't really mean anything unless you win games that matter. But whatever the case may be, not even just last year's team, having the 2022 team finish within a half game of making the playoffs, that's absurd. He's got to remember that their season came down to Jets-Dolphins at the end of the year. And if the Jets had won, I think the Dolphins won 9-6 or something. It was an ugly-ass game at the end of the year because it was Skylar Thompson playing against Mike White. And if the Jets would have won that game, the Steelers would have gotten in the playoffs. After a really bad start with Mitch Trubisky, and then somehow clawing their way back into things with Pickett. So the fact that they were even that close, again, a not good team. Defense was good, but offensively they're terrible. Filled with a ton of young talent. Like Pickens was a rookie. Najee was only in his second year. The offensive line still stunk. And they won 9 games. And had the Jets won, they would have been a playoff team. That takes a special coach to accomplish that. And then in Ben's final year, remember that year they didn't start off hot. Started off 1-3 that year. They won the first game. Who the hell did they beat in week 1 that year? That was the year that they beat Buffalo week 1. Then they lost their next 3. Who did they lose to? I know that they lost to Green Bay at one point. I think that was week 4. They lost in Green Bay. I'll have to go back and look at that schedule. And then they come back. They beat Denver. It gets to 2-3. They start rattling off some wins. And they get into the playoffs because they went 9-7-1 that year. And had the Chargers and Raiders tied in the last game of the year, then the Steelers don't get in. But Chargers didn't play for the tie. The Raiders end up winning and getting to the playoffs, and so do the Steelers. And then obviously they get destroyed by a Chiefs team that was just head and shoulders better than them. By the way, they had gotten their asses beat by the Chiefs earlier that season. So, yeah, their last 3, well, I guess their last 2 playoff appearances, their last 3 seasons, going 10-7 last year, getting eliminated right away in the wild card round, going 9-8 in 2022, and then going 9-7-1, getting eliminated in the wild card round. Yeah, you don't like to see the early playoff exits, but any other coach, probably not getting there in the first place. Now, I will also say this. There is something to say for, okay, I would deal with a losing season every now and then if it meant getting, a better player on offense, a quarterback that was really good. We see, even the Rams, a couple years ago, the season before last, they dealt with a ton of injuries. Matthew Stafford got hurt, Cooper Kupp got hurt, and their season was done. They were really bad. They went 5-12. But then they rebound. Matthew Stafford's healthy. They get to the playoffs. And in the last 6 weeks of the year, they were one of the best teams in the playoffs. So I understand why some people are frustrated with the lack of success recently. However, when you look at the rosters, especially the offensive talent that the Steelers have had over the past 4 years or so, name me another coach that's even getting them close to making the playoffs in all of those years. You'd be hard pressed to do it. So I see a lot of comments coming in, so we'll start getting to those. Laughing at your pinned tweet. Yeah, my new pinned tweet is an article I wrote about Josh Allen, but the description I used for it, I mean, you guys know Josh Allen's my favorite player in the league. I love talking about him, love watching him play. And so, yeah, I did like a deep dive onto 13 stats that just show how insane he is. And the way I described it was, it's getting a laugh out of people. So go and read that if you'd like. Coach Steve versus the Broncos team had to be the greatest coaching feat until Fitz fumbled. That Denver defense was insane, made them look mediocre. That fumble still traumatizes me. Yeah, remember, I believe that was the year that they had come back against Denver earlier that year in Pittsburgh. Antonio Brown had like 15 catches or something absurd. They were down 17 at one point. They stormed all the way back and won in Pittsburgh. It's a game that they should have won. That's pretty disappointing that they didn't. That one haunted me for a little bit too, because that was one that, 2 losses in Denver in the playoffs that really just got away. Shazier injury killed the defense. Yeah, it did. And I understand that. But at the same time, one position does not a defense make. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, not having Shazier and having, less than, Sean Spence and John Bostic at different times at the linebacker spot. Yeah, that's not ideal. But at the same time, it's not as if, they didn't have other good players on that defense. Or it's not as if they could have built a better defense. Kevin Colbert was not a good GM in the final part. That's another thing with Tomlin. Like, I know that he takes a lot of the share of the blame, but Kevin Colbert deserves a lot of the blame because Kevin Colbert did a bad job being a general manager in the last 5 to 6 years of his career. So hindsight being 2020, especially now with like the Omar Khan era in year 2, I think that we can look back and say, oh yeah, Kevin Colbert was just bad for those final years. And I think that he deserves a lot of, I think that you got to give Tomlin a little bit of slack when it comes to certain things. Chiefs week 2. No, that was 2018. That was a while ago. All people that want Tomlin out usually cannot name a replacement, just like to say, just stir the pot. Yeah, I'll say this. Whenever Mike Munchak was still on the staff, that would have been a name that people could have legitimately been like, hire Mike Munchak. And you could have made a legitimate case to do that. Best offensive line coach in the game at that point. So you could have made a legitimate case, like especially after the loss to the Jaguars in the playoffs. If you'd have said, look, that's kind of the last straw. We're going to hire Mike Munchak as the head coach. That I think a lot of people would have been like, okay, there still would have been criticism, obviously, for firing Tomlin, but you can at least point to Mike Munchak and say, yeah, he's earned an opportunity to try this. Tomlin haters wanted Urban Meyer. Yet Urban Meyer's a tool. Wanted Lincoln Riley. I think Lincoln Riley will eventually end up somewhere. Wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it'll be anytime soon because he's making boku bucks in college and has very little pressure. So I don't think it'll be like anytime soon. But I won't be surprised if one day Lincoln Riley tries his luck and comes to the NFL side of things to see how good he can do. I think it's possible. Definitely think it's possible that we see Lincoln Riley in the NFL. But yeah, my point being that, again, hindsight being 2020, Kevin Colbert deserves a lot more of the blame than he was ever given. Was incompetent when it came to building defenses. Didn't do anything in free agency, only tried building through the draft. But now seeing Omar Khan do what he's been doing, I think that we can look and say, okay, you know what? Maybe Mike Tomlin deserves a little bit of a break when it comes to some of these things. Because again, Kevin Colbert was not good at his job for the final little bit. Yeah, Artie Burns, Sean Davis. Yeah, I mean, those two draft picks kind of sum up his final few years. At this point, I'm not even looking for us to assign a specific name of wide receiver, just someone who's actually done something in the league. I got to tell you, man, I'm going to make a pact right now. Until a trade is made, I'm not going to say the name Brandon Ayuk on the show anymore because I'm tired of talking about it. Well, all I can really say anymore is we'll see. I think something will get done, but you guys know my feelings on it. I don't want to be a broken record and come on here and say the same thing every night. I don't think it'll be Ayuk. I think it'll be Treylon Burks or somebody of that caliber. I would love for it to be Ayuk, but I don't think it will be. If it is a big name, it's one that I don't think we've talked about yet and kind of flies under the radar. So, but from this point on, Scout's honor, I'm not saying the name Brandon Ayuk unless I get a notification from Adam Schefter saying the Steelers have traded for Brandon Ayuk. So this is officially my line in the sand. I'm done talking about Brandon Ayuk. Not doing it. So I guess I should say, how do we want to do this? Because if there is a Schefter tweet or a rap sheet tweet that's like Steelers and 49ers are in discussions for finalizing a Brandon Ayuk trade, then yeah, technically he's not a Steeler yet, but he's going to be close, then sure. But until something like that happens, not doing it. Done talking about it. I know that a lot of you, are really hoping that it happens and everything and enjoy talking about it. So I apologize if I'm breaking your hearts or something, but it's just we've done this for quite literally 2 months now. So, like I said, until a trade happens, I'm not going to say the name from here on out. Sup, Ali? Good to see you. There you go, X. Get one last one in on this show at least. You can go do that on DB's show. I'm not talking about it anymore. I just can't. Now, if you have any other suggestions for wide receivers to throw out, then sure. Maybe ones that we haven't talked about too much yet. Then yes, obviously I will talk about it then. But when it comes to that receiver in specific, it's just been, like I said, I don't want to sound like a broken record, talking about the same things every day. I know that I've talked about that before. It's June 13th. We now have, a 5.5 week wait until training camp. So I understand. I'm not angry about it or anything. But yeah, I think that this is officially the show where the line is drawn in the sand. And no more Brandon Ayuk stuff. DK Metcalf, Chris Godwin, Devontae Adams, some names. Yeah, you know what? Can I take DK Metcalf out of this too? Because that's another one. I'll keep Chris Godwin in because, again, that's been a name that I've had in the back of my mind for the past month. I feel like I can take DK Metcalf out too. I don't think that's going to happen, personally. I think it's kind of a lot of people said that Cortland Sutton would be a little bit redundant because he, a lot of his skill set matches George Pickens. DK Metcalf would be equally as redundant. I think Chris Godwin makes more sense than DK Metcalf would. I'll keep talking about Devontae Adams, though, because I want that to happen. Selfishly. And again, I know he's a little bit older, and it wouldn't be a long-term thing. They'd still have to draft a receiver next year. But I'd like it. I like Devontae Adams. I think that would be really fun. By the way, yes, I am wearing the exact same hoodie and hat combo I wore last night. I've had a long day in terms of content. I've been working all day in terms of getting stuff written up, editing stuff. So I didn't feel like getting cute tonight. So you're getting the same hoodie, same hat that you got last night. So if you notice that, yes, I am wearing the same thing I wore last night. My apologies. Hey, B Reunion. How the hell old is Antonio Brown? He got drafted in 2010? It's about like 36 now. No, nobody needs that. But yeah, now kind of starts that waiting game. Like, I know that we've been waiting for a trade for a little bit, but we've at least had OTAs and mini camps to talk about for the past month. So now it really starts the wait. The wait. Careless about wide receiver. Can we get a competent? I'll say this: Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are massive upgrades over what the Steelers had last year. And if you look at Chris Sims did his top 40 quarterbacks. I do top 36. Mine have been out a little bit longer. I don't know why I felt the need to say that last part, but me and Chris Sims both kind of similar placement for these quarterbacks. I put Justin Fields 21 and Russell Wilson 22, or Justin Fields 22 and Russell Wilson 23. Chris Sims put Russell Wilson 21, Justin Fields 25. So I think that Justin Fields is a little bit better than what he's given credit for. He's also had bad teams around him and a bad offensive coordinator. But he's obviously shown very special ability as an athlete and as a runner. Go back and watch that Miami game from a couple years ago. Maybe not the entire game, but go watch his big plays from that game. He had like 4 of them. He just broke off big runs. That's a special player. Special athlete. And I hope that he taps into some of that in some way in Pittsburgh. Quick housekeeping stuff. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, I think we're 2 away from 1,100, by the way. So that's pretty neat. Let me actually check real quick. I must check. We'll see if we've reached the milestone yet. Yeah, 2 away from 1,100. Last week reached 1,000. So let's see if we can get up another 100 by the end of the night. So just need 2 more. Appreciate all of you who have subscribed already. Appreciate everybody who tunes in every night for these. Don't know if we'll be doing one tomorrow. I'll give you that heads up right now. It's been very much burnout over the past few weeks of off-season content, and with this being the last day of minicamp, I think I might just take a little bit R&R tomorrow and not really do a whole lot of anything. Might just think me and fellow Steelers beat guy. I shouldn't say I'm not a Steelers beat guy. I'm a Steelers fan who happens to live in Pittsburgh, talks about football for a living. I'm an NFL guy who does Steelers stuff. I guess it's the best way of putting it. But I think me and Nick Farbaugh, shout out Nick Farbaugh, gonna make some sort of plans this weekend, so that'll be fun. By the way, happy birthday to the one and only Zach Smith. You watch him on the Steelers Afternoon Drive Pod and around the 412. So happy birthday, Zach Smith. Everybody loves Zach Smith. Hope that he had a lovely birthday. Got some more comments coming in. Devontae's the best route runner in the league. I don't know if he is anymore. He's definitely up there. I think Justin Jefferson is definitely, you put him in that conversation. He's the best all-around receiver in the league. Devontae Adams, I don't think he's the best route runner anymore. He's still in, one of the better ones in the league. Julio Jones fall off is going to be funny to watch. It wasn't even that much of a fall off, man. He got old. He got hurt near the end of his Atlanta run. Just old and hurt. Not much of a fall off. It was just Odell Beckham was a fall off. It's just Odell Beckham has been treated like he's still 2014 Odell Beckham. We've treated him like that for 10 years. That's annoying. I'm with Jared. I can't keep hearing about a wide receiver for the next 6 weeks. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to try not to talk about wide receiver stuff too much until a trade happens. So that's just my mantra on it. And again, if there's names that start coming up that we may not have heard before, or if there's actual reports saying, hey, the Steelers are reaching out to X, Y, and Z, or the Steelers and X, Y, and Z are in talks to make a trade happen, then yeah, obviously we'll talk about it. But yeah, I'm not gonna keep beating that dead horse. Thank you, Ali. New sub. One more. I don't know what I'll do if we get it live, but I'll be pretty happy about it. Be pretty dope. Pretty excited about it. So yeah. Last weekend we got to 1,000 subs. Now we can get up to 1,100. I don't even know what a realistic goal would be by season's end, because that's what we have 7-ish months, 8-ish months. You have close to 8 months until the end of the 2024 season when Super Bowl's done. So in 8 months' time, if I can do math in my head, so in the last about, I don't know, 8 weeks, gone up about 700 subs, I would say. So 8 weeks is 32 weeks, 32 times 7. So yeah, I mean, it's realistic that we can get to like 2,300 or maybe like 3,000. That's a good question. Underrated player that you think will make the 53 man. That is a good question. I'll say guys that have stood out to me that are fringe guys have been Des Fitzpatrick, the wide receiver. He was on the practice squad last year. He had a really nice day yesterday. If you want to consider Scotty Miller underrated, I think he's just kind of one of those bubble guys that it won't shock me if he does make the roster. It won't shock me if he doesn't. Oh, another underrated guy. That is overall, I mean, that's a good question. Yeah, I think that Scotty Miller, Des Fitzpatrick. I don't think Des Fitzpatrick will make it. I'm trying to think of like one of the cornerbacks. I don't think that Beanie Bishop is like under talked about or anything by Steelers fans because I've talked about him a lot, but I think that that's still a guy that can make the final roster. Maybe the tight end Rodney Williams. I mean, he was on the main roster for a few games last season. He's the one who almost recovered the Killebrew block punt in the end zone against Baltimore for a touchdown. So he had some time on the roster last year and basically just played special teams. So I mean, there's a lot of there's a handful of guys that have like been here for a while, been on the practice squad, that'll keep being fringe guys. Like Cody White, he's not here anymore, but he was on the practice squad as a receiver for like 3 years and always had like a few like nice plays during training camp, but never could quite crack the roster. I think he appeared in a small handful of regular season games in his few years. But guys like that, maybe like someone like a Josiah Scott, depending on how he performs in camp and preseason. Graylin Arnold, another defensive back that's fighting for time. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys that will be in the mix. What about Plumley? He's interesting. I love John Rice Plumley. Obviously, like, I did a little fun thing with him yesterday, trying to figure out if he or Scotty Miller had more on-field drip. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, in terms of him, so I mean, I asked him about like what his role would be if they're using him in any interesting way, and he said, offensively, I'm a quarterback, but I've been working with as a returner on special teams just to see if there's any other way that I can contribute and try to make the team. So offensively, he's purely a quarterback, but he is. They have worked him out during drills as a returner, doing special team stuff as well. So he's trying to make the team in any way that he can, which is good to see. I hope he does because I really enjoy him. He's a guy that just seems to just be fun to be around and make everybody's day better. So I hope that John Rice Plumley makes the team in some way, shape, or form. I was talking to Alan Saunders yesterday during practice. Is like just turn him into Aldi brand Taysom Hill. I just use him on special teams. If you can work a package in for him on offense, then great. Figure out a way to use him. Is there a chance we see Plumlee make the roster at any position besides quarterback? I don't think so. They haven't really utilized him at any other position on offense. But again, if he's utilized on special teams, then I guess that would be a different position. But it won't be any other offensive position. Again, I think he'd be that Taysom Hill role where he's like the third string quarterback, but also like he'll play on kickoff, he'll play on punt return, stuff like that. Dajon Edwards. Yeah, there's a few running backs like Dajon Edwards, Jonathan Ward, Aaron Shamplin from Harvard. Like, LaMichael Pirine, like they have a bunch of running backs that are also competing to be on the roster in some way, shape, or form. Pirine was with the Chiefs last year and won a Super Bowl. He was mostly a special teams guy last year. Aaron Shamklin has bounced around the league a little bit. Jonathan Ward was in the UFL, or he was a UFL guy that they tried out during rookie minicamp, and he made the team. So, or got a contract to try and make the team. So yeah, they have a bunch of running backs that are going to try to make the roster. By the way, Cordero Patterson, much bigger in person than I thought. He's massive. That's a big dude. Big boy Cordero Patterson. So I'll stay on for a couple more minutes and then we'll call it here. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to sleep good tonight. I say that after every show. I feel like I'm always like a little bit tired during these. You think Najee will sign an extension? Things are kind of weird. They won't let him talk to. It's not that they won't let him talk to the media. He's choosing not to talk to the media. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but Najee Harris isn't exactly a peach when it comes to talking to us. Like no, I don't think he's going to sign an extension. I think that he's going to play elsewhere in 2025, and I think they're going to focus on keeping Jaylen Warren. So, yeah, I mean, Najee's never been much of a media guy. And like, whatever. That's, he's not required to be, to put on a happy face and be nice to the media. I get that, but yeah, I mean, he's never been like a media peach by any means. I think it's more likely we get either Devontae or Chris Godwin than those other guys you said whose name we shouldn't say. Again, Chris Godwin hasn't been mentioned in terms of any sort of trade stuff. That's just been one I've thrown out there. I think it would be cool. I think Devontae would surprise a lot of people. For Devontae, I don't think that would get done until in season. Unless like he expresses before the season, like, hey, I want traded. Then maybe, but haven't seen anything that says that he'll do that. Jeremiah Moon. I mean, I haven't heard anything like negative about Jeremiah Moon throughout this offense or throughout this offseason program. Haven't seen anything like too ginormous from him either. So, I mean, it's been a little bit quiet. This is a good one. DeMarvin Leal, I will say he made a play during team drills the other day. He batted a pass at the line of scrimmage. Was getting, I think he was one of the guys who got pressure that would have probably been a sack in a game and one of the team drills. So Leal's had a nice little stretch. I'm trying to think of who highlighted him in one of their recaps. It might have been Fireball. I'd have to go back and look, or it might have been Allen. But I'm pretty sure at some point during these past couple weeks, he was highlighted as a guy who had a nice day. So yeah, DeMarvin Leal's had a respectable offseason program. Do that thing where it right-clicked again. Say this is a prove-it year for Najee. Somewhat, yeah. He's only had 1 year in his career where he's averaged over 4 yards a carry. It was Allen. I remember the video. Yeah, see, I knew it was one of the two Steelers now, guys. I know my beat friends. Don't worry. And if you're just tuning in, I'll play the videos again. So the basis for today's video, I did a piece. I went around. I asked 7 of the newest Steelers just their immediate thoughts throughout the offseason program of playing for Mike Tomlin, what their thoughts were. First player I asked was Russell Wilson.
Well, Mike's been amazing, man. Coach Tomlin's a special coach, Hall of Fame coach. I'm grateful, man. We got some amazing players here. The culture's amazing, and the work ethic's great too. So I'm just grateful to be here.
So that was Russell Wilson and his thoughts on Mike Tomlin. And then I also asked Dante Jackson the same question.
Any other coaches?
Oh, it's been great, man. It's been great. You hear a lot about him, being on the outside looking in, and he's definitely as advertised. He loves football. He loves Steelers football, and it's just been a great experience, and I'm glad to have this opportunity.
So if you want to read the entire piece, go to touchdownwire.usatoday.com. I asked 7 of the newest Steelers their thoughts thus far in playing for Mike Tomlin. So I obviously asked Russ and Dante Jackson, but also Dean Lowry, new defensive tackle. John Rice Plumley is part of the piece as well. Anthony Averett, veteran cornerback. So a lot of guys in there that, been around the league, played for, a bunch of different head coaches and whatnot. And just getting their thoughts so far on playing for Mike Tomlin. So go and read that again, touchdownwire.usatoday.com. Then we're going to call it there for the night. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, again, I'm leaning toward not doing one tomorrow. I think tomorrow's just going to be an unplugged day where I just don't do a lot of content. I think that, as I said, this offseason stuff, I try not to complain. I've said that on here before. I try not to, bitch and moan about talking about football for a day job because there's plenty of people that would like to do it. I'm very thankful to do it. But I am also human and I can get a little bit overwhelmed with work. So today was one of those days where it was like I just felt like I was doing nothing but work all day. So I'm going to take a day tomorrow to kind of wind down. Could do one on Saturday, but if not, I'm just going to take the weekend, recharge the batteries. That way, come back Monday and feel good. So we'll just keep that in mind if we don't do a show tomorrow. Any new helmets on the wall? The Bills ones? Yeah, I love the Bills one. It's a good one. Like I said, I've had 2 of them in my cart for the past week. I just haven't bought them yet. The rookie Randy Moss Vikings colored purple ones for the Vikings. That was the late 90s until the early to mid 2000s, that Vikings helmet. And then there's the 1980s Chargers ones where it's that ugly ass navy blue and the ugly bright yellow face mask. But I don't have a Chargers helmet yet. And the whole goal of this is to get a throwback helmet. The Steelers don't really have I don't like the yellow throwback helmet. I'll say that. So I just got the normal Steelers helmet. And the Bengals, the only other throwback helmet the Bengals have is the one that just says Bengals on the side. So, I got the 60s Oilers right there. I got the god-awful double-shaded Jaguars right there. Here, I'll bring you over. The Kelly Green Eagles are over there. And then the Silverdome Seahawks. And obviously the Browns, the Bucks, the Broncos, Bills. So that's how that goes. I do need to rotate these, though, because I don't want to, I want to be able to get, more of the Kelly Green Eagles in the shot. So I think I'm going to start rotating them as well. Just so I can get, everybody else can see all the fun stuff. But yeah, the goal is to get a helmet of every team. So that'll happen over time. God, we get it. You're sick of us. No, definitely not, man. Like I said, it's been really cool to see the growth of this so quickly, and I'm very appreciative of it. So thank you guys for continuing to tune in. I appreciate it a lot. Again, if you're not already subscribed, go do that. Next week in the Pump Fake, we're doing the NFC West. So that'll probably be Tuesday. Tuesday in the Pump Fake, previewing the NFC West. So just giving you a little bit of a look ahead into what's to come. And then now that these guys are, in the lull between minicamp and training camp, that's when it's a little bit easier to get some guys to do some media stuff. So I'll be doing some reaching out and try to get a few players on before training camp. So I know that would be something that would be pretty cool to do. So yeah, if you're not already subscribed, do that. Go and read all the written stuff at USA Today. Touchdownwire.usatoday.com. Go read all the Steelers stuff behind the steel curtain. Appreciate you guys very, very much. And again, probably no show tomorrow. I'm going to take, a little bit of a 3-day weekend, get recharged, and be back. Was it that Mike Greenberg said, back and better than ever? I always liked that, watching Mike and Mike. I think Mike Greenberg still says it on Get Up. I also got to find a better way to do outros for this. So that is kind of rant, but that's okay. Regardless, appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, have a good night. Have a safe night. I'll see you back here on Monday. The Black and Gold Breakdown. Till then, take care.